GM.
GM, everyone. GM. We are back. We are live with the final and most important weekly news recap of 2025. So you're in the right place. This is the right time. So a massive welcome back to the Solana Weekly Recap, where we chat through Solana's biggest stories straight from the SolanaFloor newsroom. Now, I'm joined, of course, by our senior journalist, Finn, and, of course, Mr. Thomas Bahamas. And we're going to break down what's moving the ecosystem, what's just noise, and what's actually worth your attention. So, Finn, Thomas, GM sirs, how are we doing? We've just come back from a massive breakpoint week. It's Friday before the holidays. The numbers are down, sentiment's up. We've got our festive gear on. I got my Christmas jumper. What's the mood like?
Yeah, look, I think people are still riding that breakpoint high. You know, there's just so much enthusiasm, so much excitement for everything Solana related. I think the optimism of that is carrying over, and we're weathering any drawdowns in price with good optimistic moves. So yeah, price is down, vibes are up, future looks good.
Yeah, GM. I kind of I agree with everything you said there, right? So the sentiment seems up. I'm kind of like still riding the high from Breakpoint, right? We got to speak to a ton of amazing guests. Everybody seemed to have like a lot going on. Everybody's pretty bullish. At price, not necessarily, right? I guess that we'll get into that a little bit more, but you know, I'm excited. There's still time for a Santa rally. I've got the Santa hat on. I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Absolutely. So obviously, before we dive into the newsletter itself, it's worth, I think, talking about Breakpoint briefly, because there was an endless stream of massive updates. We had a long stream of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, people on stage shilling their projects, talking about the updates. So the list is too long to go through all of them, but we obviously don't have time for everything. So if you want to check out the full 3-day live stream that we did, you can see that on X, you can see that on YouTube. It was great. As Thomas mentioned, we spoke to some amazing guests. But since you're all here now, let's give you a very quick TLDR of what happened during Breakpoint. And it's probably worth starting with the biggest numbers, right? We like big numbers, so why not? State Street. Now, these guys launched a partnership with Galaxy Digital, pardon me. It's called Sweep. It's a tokenized private liquidity fund. And obviously, State Street is the world's 4th largest asset manager. They've got $5 trillion in assets under management. Absolutely humongous. And I think what's interesting here is that they're going to use PYUSD, and they're going to be seeded with $200 million from Ondo Finance. So that's absolutely huge. Thomas, Finn, what do we think? $5 trillion?
Yeah, $5 trillion is there's a lot of zeros to that number. I'm curious to see how much of that actually does end up coming on chain. You know, these funds, they like to come out with these big numbers, these huge bombastic statements, and people get really excited about it. Obviously, great to have that liquidity coming on chain, but you know, we'll know for sure that it's happening when we see it.
Definitely, Thomas. I think it's worth noting here. This is something you mentioned while we were doing our 3-day live stream in Breakpoint. The word trillions, it was a bit of a meme for a while, right? People just posted as a comment. But for the first time ever, you and I spoke to somebody from Galaxy, Thomas Cohen, and we asked him, how much of that $5 trillion is actually going to come on chain, and he gave us some pretty interesting responses, didn't he?
Yeah, the response was all of it eventually, right? So we were kind of talking about what questions we should ask him before the stream. And I was like, of course, we're going to ask him how much of that is he going to put on chain? And I was expecting a much lower number than what he responded with. He pretty straightforward. We're going to put all of it on chain. Time frame, we're not sure about it. It kind of spoke to a lot of like the sentiment that we were talking to when we were talking to a lot of these like big TradFi operators, right? They're so bullish. This is going to be an instrumental part of how they're moving forward with their business, right?
Did he say if there was Solana exclusive deployments, or was he a bit kind of blasé about which chain was actually going to get the bulk of that volume?
Yeah, I'm curious. I think Anthony Scaramucci was also saying it's maybe unreasonable to expect a $1 trillion asset manager to put all their eggs into a single basket. So that seems to be a likely scenario. Let's run through this. The list is way too long. We don't have time to talk about everything, unfortunately. But Solflare Shield was announced. I've got one here, still in the box, unboxed. Now, this is a free hardware wallet that was given to all Breakpoint attendees. And I think we had ours on the table, actually, for the full duration of the 3-day stream. So, we showed it to everyone. I think it's really cool. It's a debit card-shaped hardware wallet. We probably should have asked for an affiliate code, now that I think about it. Would have been good at that time, right? So, Solflare, I think, deserves a bit of a shout-out here. They turned up, again, with a huge team, 50-man deep. massive squad, and also amazing after party. So thank you to SolanaFloor and a massive shout out to those guys.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they had at the team about 50 people on site, and everywhere you look, there was SolanaFloor yellow. You know, every attendee got a SolanaFloor shield. So again, SolanaFloor really doing their bit for everyone on Solana and really spreading that community message. So yeah, well done SolanaFloor on that. The product itself is good. It's very practical. It's very efficient. You know, you don't have all the bells and whistles that you'd have on other hardware wallets. So if you just want something that is simple and easy to use, SolanaFloor really knocked it out of the park with that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I set mine up really easily, took a couple minutes to set up, and you know, I think it's going to be a success, right? It's people are used to having a card in their wallet, so to pull a card out to, you know, actually sign a transaction kind of makes sense to me, right? I like it.
I was just about to say, actually, have either of you set one up? Because I haven't, so that was going to be my disclaimer. I haven't actually used it. I can only speak to its form, not really its function. But has anyone used it? Do we think it's easy to use? Do we like it? Do we love it?
Yeah, I've set mine up. I've set it up. I've pinged off a few transactions, and it is you know, as the advertising shows, send transaction, tap the phone to your card, and you're away. The thing that I'm a bit gutted about is that, you know, at Breakpoint we got the clean black one, and I actually would quite like a personalized one, so I'm gonna have to get two, I think.
You're gonna have to pay for one of those, $59 if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
which is a reasonable amount for a hardware wallet, to be fair.
Yeah,
you know, that's not too much for a little extra protection.
I think that's fine. I think that's fine. So, all right, this one's huge, Finn. Now, I know we're going to dive deeper into this in just a second, so let's rush through it. But Coinbase announced at Breakpoint that they are going to now allow their users to trade any Solana DEX token using debit cards, bank accounts, or USDC that's already in their Coinbase accounts. And I think this is massively bullish for obvious reasons. Coinbase has over 100 million users worldwide. They got $200 billion in quarterly volume. This is really cool. Finn, high-level thoughts on Coinbase. I know there was some animosity a few weeks ago, but it seems to be sort of mended. What do we think?
Yeah, for me, this is a real case of if you can't beat them, join them. You know, Coinbase was really pushing Base for a long time, and they're still going to continue to do that, obviously. But I think this integration is kind of a recognition that Solana is where all the on-chain trading is happening, and Coinbase doesn't want to be sidelined to that. So they're opening up as many doors as they can. They want their users to access as many long-tail Solana-based assets as possible, and it's obviously a net positive. I don't think that 100 million Coinbase users are going to start trading on the Solana DEXs in the immediate future. But it does help just with expanding the accessibility and growing that TAM. So yeah, good news for us.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to run through these quick fire updates here because we want to dive right into Finn's spicy and delicious newsletter. Pump funds, pump buybacks exceeded $205 million. Now that's 13.5% of the total circulating supply. We were given news at Breakpoint that surpassed Radium to become the top Solana protocol for buybacks within the short 5-month period that they did it. Now, we spoke with Austin Federa, and he gave us a very long, spicy take about why he thinks buybacks are mid-curve. If you want to hear that take, I suggest you go and listen to the full interview. It'll be on X. It'll be on YouTube. You can find it also in the full live stream. But what really surprised me there is he said, how long do you have? And we said, well, there's about 2 minutes left. I think we're actually running overtime. And he said, too bad. It's going to take a while. And he sort of explained why token buybacks are a bit of a mid-curve tech. So that was really, really interesting. Moving over to ETF land, though, Thomas, this is what we discussed, I think, pretty extensively during Breakpoint with the suited and booted experts that came into our very warm SolanaFloor livestream booth. The total ETF AUM across all Solana ETFs is now at just under $1 billion. It might have passed it actually in the last couple of days. I haven't checked. But while we were there, we were given news that it was $949 million. Obviously, BSOL is leading the charge, right?
Yep. So BSOL leading the charge. Every day that we were there, it was, $3, $4, $5 million of inflows, right? So the inflows are there. The ETFs are an extremely good product, and people are bullish. They're buying. You can see the total amounts and you can see the daily amounts that they're coming through. So I think Matt Hogan from Bitwise even said that there is why are people buying this ETF, right? They understand crypto, they understand Bitcoin, they go a little bit further down the risk curve. And he said there's a 10x opportunity with the Solana ETF. So that was an indirect talking about the price, right? I was excited about that. I was excited to hear that.
It's a spicy soundbite. I don't know if I don't know if we should be throwing that around too much. But listen, if he says 10x, and he also mentioned that they take 15,000 meetings per year with TradFi investors. So listen, if they're shilling a 10x opportunity to, all these men in suits on Wall Street, I'm happy. I'm not going to complain. But another juicy soundbite, you mentioned Matt Hogan there, came from a discussion that he had with Max Resnick. So it wasn't just announcements and product launches, and there was spicy debates as well. I think I enjoyed a lot of them at Breakpoint. Max Resnick, lead economist at Anzil, we've had the pleasure of speaking to him. Absolute gigabrain Chad. He argued that Solana, as it is today, is already ready for $68 trillion of equities to come on chain. Raise some eyebrows. Personally, it scares me a little bit. I don't want to crash the chain. Finn, you actually wrote about liveness in this week's newsletter, right? So what do we think? Max, is he going to jinx it all and nuke the entire crypto market, nuke the entirety of Solana with his $68 trillion Christmas wish list?
Look, I don't think Max would make a claim like that lightly. At the same time, I think let's start with 1 trillion first. Let's start with 100 billion first. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Let's build the foundations. Let's take things one thing at a time, and we'll get there eventually. But let's cross the first milestone in front of us before making lunary predictions about $68 trillion.
Let's not ram $68 trillion on chain overnight. I think, we love Max, but don't ruin our lives here. All right, another update here from Sanctum. We spoke to Eno. Now, this is something to look forward to in 2026 for all the boys and girls that are on Santa's good list. Now, Sanctum introduced its mobile app. It's going to launch next year, and the mobile users are going to get 10% SOL rewards paid daily, which I think is quite interesting. Instant rewards, collectibles, super bullish. Thomas, we spoke with Eno. I think it was the end of day one. He was extremely bullish, as always.
Yeah. So he was bullish. And I've been thinking about this more too. It's like a lot of staking yields have kind of condensed a little bit, right? You're probably seeing in more of like the 5 to 7% range for a lot of these different validators. So for them to offer 10%, like, first of all, I'm kind of wondering where that additional yield is coming from, but also it's a fantastic product. Like the more I think about it, the more I want them to go ahead and launch it so that I can use it, It's a good time in my mind to be buying the dip and staking for 10%.
Definitely.
That's what I'm seeing.
We love double-digit yields. All right, the list is way too long. I'm sure we're going to miss a bunch of updates, and a lot of people are going to be angry with us. But let's run through the rest of them. Now, I think we've been waiting for this, or at least the entire Solana ecosystem's been waiting for this for years now. Fire Dancer is now live on Solana mainnet. It's been 3 years in development, so they successfully produced 50,000 blocks after running on a handful of validators for 100 days. And Toli said, I think this is one of the best tweets he's ever put out. Usually he just puts, he'll like quote tweet something with 3 emojis, but this is good. He said, pull one out for the beta tag. So the question is, fellas, for you two, for everyone watching this at home, when 1 million TPS? When are we going to see it? And if you do think it's coming sooner rather than later, let us know in the comments. We obviously want this to happen overnight, but it's not going to happen overnight. Let's see how long that takes. Now, another big number, big institutional announcement was from JP Morgan. These guys are obviously one of the most important banks in the world. They arranged a US commercial paper issuance with Galaxy Digital on Solana. Shout out Galaxy, shout out Michael Marcantonio, who Finn has been speaking to quite extensively. Again, these guys are a huge bank. Whether you love them or you hate them, and they are quite divisive, this is definitely significant. And I think, if we can end with anything even more bullish than that, we should probably talk about spot ETFs recording 10 consecutive net inflow days. So we got this news on day 3 of Breakpoint, and they told us that it was $11 million of inflows overall in that period. So extremely bullish news, extremely bullish sentiment at Breakpoint, and clearly BSOL is still leading the way, and it looks like they will lead the way as well.
Yeah, although we did have a bit of a flash flare up in Fidelity's ETF. I think the other day they notched in around 38 million inflows in one day. So personally, I think it's great to see a bit more competition on the ETF front. Bitwise has been completely dominating since inception. No one's really held a candle to them. But with Fidelity actually bringing in some strong inflows, it looks like that game might even out a bit. So yeah, love to see it.
Let's see if more players can come in and challenge that number 1 and number 2 spot. So a lot of news. We have to rush through these. So while I pull up Finn's newsletter in just a second and we get cracking with the top 6 stories that are moving the Solana ecosystem, Thomas, you flew halfway across the bloody planet to get to Abu Dhabi for Breakpoint. So if you had to sort of put your finger on it, what would you say your single most important takeaway would be?
Yeah, let's see. First of all, the sheer magnitude of it was amazing, right? The fact that other people get on the plane and travel so far, and just how like international the community really is, and how much people put into getting to there was amazing. I said it before, but I'm still kind of like riding the high of Breakpoint, right? Like it was great to see people, great to see put the face to a lot of the NFT profile pictures, meet people that I've talked to, over the years. This was my first Breakpoint, so got to meet a lot of people in person for the very first time. So it was fantastic. They put on a great event, and I think it's really important for a lot of the people that go to see what's going on, see who the big players are, hear more from the institutions, hear more from the developers, see how they're talking to each other. I mean, the main takeaway from a lot of the TradFi was like there is not a difference between me and how I think about the market, and what Mike Reed from Franklin Templeton is thinking of, right? We both have our Kudus ring on, we both have our Helium phone plans. We're thinking along the same lines. So it just what they're doing and how they're talking about Solana and crypto in general is just they're addressing a different market, right? So they're talking to more people in the traditional sector. That's not how they think, right? So it was great to kind of see, like, a lot of them said this was their favorite event. They come here to have fun. So it was great to see. Yeah.
As long as Breakpoint remains fun, I think everyone will keep having fun. Now, Finn, you opened your newsletter this week actually with some takeaways from Breakpoint. And anyone that attended seems to be missing it. Anyone that didn't attend seems to be feeling some FOMO. So Finn, take it away. Talk me through your little retrospective analysis from Breakpoint this year.
Yeah, so obviously everyone has heard all the announcements and all the headlines by now. We're all well versed in what actually happened. But I think what you can't take away if you're not there, what you can't really feel by not being in the building is the atmosphere and the general vibe and what kind of people are thinking and the conversations people are having. So I've distilled that down to 3 key points. The first is that there is no TradFi / crypto native divide. There's a lot of talk about how Solana sold its soul, crypto sold its soul. Satoshi never would have wanted Bitcoin to trade an ETF. I think that's been overstated personally. There's really no distinction between TradFi and crypto native bros. Everyone wants the space to succeed. You might read on CT that it's antagonistic between each other. No, everyone wants to coexist. Everyone wants to lift each other up. And basically Solana remains an open network for everyone. Second was that nobody cares about price. If you were on the ground, you wouldn't have imagined that Solana was down 50% from its all-time high. You wouldn't imagine that we're down 30% in the past 2 months. All the builders, all the institutional players, they're all just focused on the future, on what's coming next, on all the incredible things happening. Mary from Loopscale said it best. She said, I haven't checked price in weeks. All I care about is TVL going up on Loopscale. So again, the builders, they're focused on their apps. Developers, they're focused on performance. Engineers focused on scaling Solana as much as possible. And institutional players are just looking towards the future. So no one cares about price. Vision is everything that matters. Finally, everyone wants to do the hard thing. So nobody who's building apps on Solana just wants to ride the wave and catch the easy bid. Everyone wants to go out of their way to build something truly spectacular. Competition has never been as fierce as it is now. Everyone's committed to wiping out their vertical and kind of taking top spot. So ultimately, steel sharpens steel. The end user is winning in every capacity here. So yeah, forget about price, forget about antagonism between TradFi and crypto natives. Solana's here to stay, and it's firing on all cylinders.
Absolutely. Unfortunately for me, I do care about price, but I fully agree with you that all the people we asked about the recent price action, they said, look around. Everyone's just here, head down, building, making connections. The mood is overall bullish, and I think if you zoom out and you stop thinking in 4 minutes, 10-minute intervals, even 10-day intervals, life is pretty good. So that was super exciting. Okay, I want to dive right into the first story here, Finn, because this is quite an interesting one. Visa enables stablecoin settlement for US banks via USDC on Solana. Now, I think the reason why I find this interesting personally is because stablecoins generally have been, the total stablecoin issuance have been climbing all year. We cracked recently, I believe, $16 billion new all-time high. But at the same time, there's this underlying sort of discussion of, do we need new stablecoin solutions? We have a heavy reliance on USDT and USDC. So Finn, what's up with Visa here?
Yeah, so this story, Visa is enabling stablecoin settlements for US banks via USDC on Solana. This was a pilot that was operating around the world, and now it's being rolled out in the US. Essentially, payments in the US settled in USDC. That's using USDC to pay for your normal payments that you run through Visa. It's being led by Cross River Bank and Lead Bank. They're going to be the first US institutions to participate in this program. And like you say, this is obviously great for stablecoin adoption. It means more people can use stablecoins in many more ways. I would like to see more of a shift away from reliance on USDC. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. We don't want to have that value leakage that we don't need. That's going to, half of that is going through to Circle and Coinbase. I think there's so many DeFi native stablecoins on Solana now. Everyone on Solana is launching their own stablecoin at this point. Let's use them. Let's expand that pie, and let's not let Circle kind of dominate that whole field. Thomas, what do you think about that?
I think this is bullish. I feel like this is one of those announcements that we've been hearing or wanting to see in crypto for a long time, right? Visa, MasterCard, they've always been, the imaginary competitor for crypto, and now it's coming to light, right? So how are they actually settling these payments? This is like bank-to-bank transfers that they're doing, or is this like users paying off credit cards with stable coins?
I understand it as bank to bank.
Bank to bank. Okay. That's my personal hopium. I want to see credit cards accept stable coins. So you pay your credit card, pay it off with a stable coin. It'd be the full circle for me.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And Finn, this is something you spoke to a few founders about throughout 2025, is how you would have a stablecoin integration with debit cards, with credit cards, where people could actually be earning some of that yield. And I think it all ties nicely into this stablecoin value leakage discussion. Now, I feel like I've been banging on about this for yonks now, but white label stablecoins, I think, are coming, just based on our conversations with some of the founders out there. We spoke with STBL. These guys hinted at, but couldn't really give us a timeline on when they'd be offering some white label stablecoin solutions. I don't know if it's going to be with Solana exclusively or other partners as well. So I guess my question is, are we going to solve this stablecoin value leakage issue? Some people estimate up to $450 million, which is, it's not chump change. Are we going to solve this in 2026, or are we looking at a longer time horizon? What do we think? Do we need to solve it?
I think this is something that doesn't get solved. I think USDC remains being the dominant stablecoin on Solana. I think Circle and Coinbase continue to make money off that. I think there are alternatives. I think Reflect is a team doing white label stablecoins on Solana at the moment. They're in alpha. So look, it doesn't get solved, but I think as individuals we can explore the options available to us, and we can use a greater variety of stablecoins to just expand that pie and remove some of that reliance on these centralized players.
Yeah. I think that the integration. Oh, sorry there, Jack. I was going to say
we love the competition, but continue.
I was going to say that the integration with Visa kind of proves that you almost need a USDC, right? I wouldn't see them really using another stable coin for settling transactions like this unless they launch their own. Right. So I think that, we're going to see, institutions, bigger players continue to use USDC. But us as users, we have the option, so we can choose whatever we want. Right.
Yep. Absolutely. Power to the user. Now, let's dive into Finn's next story. I found this super interesting, least of all, due to some of the recent animosity between, the base squad led by Jesse and some of the Solana manlets who were quite angry at recent announcements. So Coinbase launched a Solana DEX with a Jupiter integration via Metis. Finn, you covered this. What's going on here?
Yeah, so the main story here is that Coinbase is integrating support for Solana DEX trading on through their app. Obviously, as we mentioned before, that's great because that means that Coinbase's millions of customers can start buying long tail assets on Solana. Obviously, that's cool. There's no denying that. I think the reason this is a peculiar story is that 1 month ago, Jupiter completely distanced themselves from the Metis API. That was kind of one of their older routers, and other aggregators were, using that to indicate that they might be able to outperform Jupiter. So Jupiter kind of washed their hands of it. They said, no, this is a standalone product. It's separate from our main product line. So don't conflate the two. Now that Coinbase has said, actually, we're going to use this, Jupiter's gone, oh, you know what? Actually, the Metis router is our product. So I feel like there's a bit of crossed wires on the communication front. You know, is it a Jupiter product? Is it not a Jupiter product? Has it been distanced? Has it been put as a standalone product? Now we're not really sure.
It seems to be not the first time that they've got their comms wires crossed. Thomas, I guess as a US based crypto user, you've probably had some experience with Coinbase. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, all right. I've got a few thoughts on this. So first of all, I think it's net positive, right? You know, you're given access to, you know, a lot more Solana native assets. You're given a better way for people to trade. Like if you actually do a trade on Coinbase, it's like Ethereum prices, right? You pay like $2 for a swap plus some, so it's expensive. So I think it's a better product for a lot of them. But I also think it's a little late. You know, Coinbase is coming in now, integrating with Solana, you know, ideally to give access to a lot more tokens. Well, you know, we're past the meme coin cycle, you know, like is it too late for that to really be, you know, that helpful for all the Coinbase users that want this? So I don't know. I guess we'll see how it is. Like it's still net positive, but I mean, they kind of missed the ball here, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with Thomas on that. Like, if you're a Coinbase user and you've wanted to trade long-tail assets on Solana, you've probably already done that. You know, you've probably already got your Phantom or your SolFlare wallet. You've probably already withdrawn from your Coinbase account there, and you're probably already buying these tokens on DEXs already. So I don't think this is a massive unlock for the average Coinbase user.
Why do you reckon it took them so long?
I think maybe they were really trying to push base for a long time, and I think that has evidently not played out as well as they'd hoped. So I think they've just rolled over here and they've said, you know what, all the actions on Solana, we need to take our clients where the action is instead of trying to force them to do it on base, would be my view.
And we saw Tolly and Brian Armstrong sort of posing. They looked quite happy. My first thought was, when is Tolly going to shave his head? Or when is Brian Armstrong going to grow a beard? That was a pretty interesting bromance there. And yeah, don't want to speak ill of any other chain or any other DEX, but it certainly seems like whether you're the Western Unions of the world or the Coinbases of the world, everyone is slowly caving to the fact that things are on Solana. They have been on Solana. That's where the activity is. That's where the builders are. That's where the users are. The degens, the TradFi giants, all seem to be gravitating towards the pull of Solana. So super curious where that partnership leads. But we should move on to the next one. I think is a bit bittersweet here, Finn. So I'm going to ask you to talk me through this one. I've got some questions. I think it's important given where we've been in terms of CT sentiment for the last few weeks. Now, these guys are distributing $43 million to token holders as they sadly wind down Solana's original prop AMM. I feel like, Finn, you're a bit of a subject matter expert on prop AMMs. Both yourself and Ario, who's our data analyst, have been covering them quite closely for some time now. And we also spoke with Humidify, didn't we? Temporal's Ben Coverston joined us in the live stream booth at Breakpoint. So I imagine most people are sort of happy about the numbers, redistributing all of this value that's been created. But I imagine they're not happy about Lifinity shutting down.
Yes. So first of all, shout out Lifinity. You guys are rock stars. This is a DEX that launched back in, I think, February 2022. They've been there through it all. They kind of pioneered the prop AMM idea of using Oracle price to give traders, the best possible price instead of passive liquidity pools. Lifinity has been a huge part of Solana DeFi for immense length of time, in the same way that people now swap through SolFly and Humidify via aggregators without actually knowing they're using these apps. Lifinity was kind of the first to do that. They've ran for many years. They haven't really been able to keep competitive with the likes of Humidify and SolFly, so they've watched their volume dwindle down. And given that it is a fully decentralized DAO running this app, I think the community just put their heads together and said, look, we had a good run. Let's wrap it up. Let's distribute the treasury to absolutely everybody who holds Lifinity or any of the associated NFTs. Sorry. So it's a sad day. Lifinity gave a lot to the ecosystem, but also the swan song that they've had, the way they're going out is remarkable. I think it's very rare that we see this level of operational integrity from a team to say, look, we're going to distribute the entire treasury, 43 million, to all our holders. They're even adding about 1.3 million from their developer fund, which they would have been within their full right to keep, I think, the core team. But yeah, ultimately people are upset, but everyone kind of acknowledges that they've been outperformed in this sense. So pour one out for Lifinity. Those guys are rock stars. Thomas, I think you've probably had a bit of touching with Lifinity over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're OG. I don't even remember when they launched their NFT project, but the flares were OG NFTs. They were I think I had one, I don't know, 2 years ago or maybe more. And I always kind of heard like, hey, like they're doing amazing things. They're kind of changing the game. And they were ahead of their time, right? Like they probably played a pretty instrumental piece in the puzzle of how these new prop AMMs are working, and they like proved it out. So the way that they're handling it, I mean, absolute class act. I also, I don't do this often, but I was browsing Tensor, the NFT marketplace, a few days ago, maybe a week ago or so, and the Lifinity flares were like soaring up in price. So I don't know if there was like some leakage of what they were going to do or why they were doing that, but that did kind of pop up in my mind. So, but shout out to the team. They're doing great.
I don't think it's leakage. I think obviously it was all transparent the whole way they went about this. There was conversations in the Discord for weeks leading up to this where they said, look, should we just put it to a community decision? That proposal went out probably, I think, December 10, over a week ago. So it's all been very public. There's been no secrecy. There's been no shadiness. It's all happened completely above board. And it was almost a unanimous vote for them to wind down. So I think anyone buying Lifinity Flare NFTs at the moment are just seeing that as a way of trying to get some last minute exposure to that treasury when it goes out. What's super interesting about the treasury getting paid out is that anyone who doesn't claim, anything that is unclaimed after the first year gets redistributed amongst people who did claim. So people who might have Lifinity and not claimed their share of the treasury, they're going to be missing out. But people who do have some and do claim, maybe in a year's time, they get another kind of extra Christmas present from that. So, yeah,
that's awesome.
If you have Lifinity or any kind of exposure to Lifinity, make sure you claim your stuff, because in a year's time, you might get the other half of that treasury.
Super bullish, super bullish. Overall, I think it's a net positive decision for the Solana ecosystem, right, to redistribute that. And I think Humidify, Wet, these are obviously things that we've been talking about. We probably will be talking about them for the foreseeable future as well. Now, I want to move on to our next story. It's about Colosseum. We, of course, had the pleasure of chatting with Matty Tay during Breakpoint in Abu Dhabi. Really interesting discussion, because he obviously can provide insider information about types of projects, the types of founders, what they're submitting, what they're discussing, what they're trying to build. So if you are keen to learn more, you can go and check out that discussion during the full live stream. So Stamp here is a new investment contract. But Finn, I think people are a bit uneasy about this one, given some of the recent acquisition news. Tensor's Vector was acquired by the Coinbase team, left some token holders feeling a bit rugged, very rugged, entirely rugged perhaps. So what's going on with Stamp? I think people want to know what's actually changing fundamentally.
Yeah, so Stamp, to my understanding, is actually a legal contract that goes kind of outside of our little crypto world, and it's more about how things are handled off-chain. What Colosseum put out around this is that the existing structure of having equity in a company and a token is a broken structure, because we end up with circumstances like we saw with Coinbase and Vector, and like we saw with Circle and Axelar, in which some massive company comes along and acquires a smaller emerging company who has a token, and then anyone who holds that token basically gets left behind, because the larger company making the acquisition, they don't want that token, they don't want anything to do with that, so they just jettison it. The token gets abandoned, and anyone who believed in the underlying application, who was a supporter or an investor of something like Vector or Axelar, basically just gets left holding the bag. So Colosseum Stamp is a contract that kind of seeks to resolve this problem. It's part of a whole MetaDAO Futaki world in which token holders have a greater ownership over the treasuries and the operations of these teams. Thomas is probably a bit more familiar with that. You guys actually spoke with Profit at Breakpoint, so ultimately I'll be keen to hear a bit more about what you guys discussed with Profit, obviously. But the crux of the issue is the Stamp contract, I think, gives a bit more flexibility and a bit more control to either side of this equation, and essentially aligns project developers, startups, token holders, and private investors before these tokens go live. So it's about aligning incentives and making sure that everyone's on the same page, and ensuring that people don't just come in and acquire a company and leave the token behind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And it's so we got to speak to Profit, right? MetaDAO, huge. Profit came out, he doxed, he came on the stream without his mask. So he wasn't as scary as we imagined him being. but this is like another step in the right direction, right? You know, at the core of what he said is like, hey, these tokens, these governance tokens, they're basically rugs, right? Like there is no incentive for anybody to work for these. They're just kind of sitting there. You know, I asked the wrong question and brought up, you know, like equity and securities, which he didn't want to talk about for good reasons, right? You know, there are reasons why you cannot like tokenize a security directly, but that doesn't mean that we have to continuously have rugs, right? You know, so anything that we can do that is going to align the team with the token, with the holders is going to be major, right? So like this is the direction that we need to go, you know, especially if we're going to be the app layer and, you know, everybody is incredibly bullish on what they're building. Like we have to fix the problem of like, how do you get the upside of it? You know, how is everybody going to stay aligned? And I think that this is just like another step in that direction. You know, is this going to be what solves it? I don't know, but this is at least, you know, one step towards the right direction that we all want, right? You know, it's a hard problem where, you know, there isn't an easy solution for any of this. And we've seen a bunch of different attempts to do this. So it's a very hard problem. And, you know, whoever solves this is going to be a big winner. So I like that they're doing this. You know, they're thinking very hard about how to do it right. And, you know, it almost seems like you can't do it all on chain, right? So this is actually going, you know, a little bit more in the off-chain world to bring in, you know, some actual legal structure to this, which you know, that might be the only way that we can do it, right? So we've seen a lot of failure with DAOs and with on-chain voting, and now, you know, we're moving a little bit more in this direction. So I'm thoroughly excited about this, you know, as like a token holder of a lot of big protocols that's watched these tokens go down and them try just like random things to pump the token. It just seems like, hey, the protocol's great. Like, how do I get a piece of that? So this is going to solve that problem from that angle, I hope, or at least start to. And sorry, that was a long rant there, Jack.
No, I mean, people will, I think, to your point, continue trying to solve this problem. Whether or not it happens in the next 12 months remain to be seen. But if you do want a piece of that chat, I imagine it's probably safe to say it was the first conversation Profit had had with anyone after doxing himself on stage. So it was a great convo. Go watch the video, part of the live stream. Finn, there's also an SKR angle to this whole discussion of futarchy and ownership tokens and value ecosystem. So I know Toli tweeted something as well recently about this. I'm going to scroll down to it in your article. You've titled this, or subheader rather, owning the full SKR stack. Talk me through what this discussion is with Toli himself.
Yeah, so I don't think that SKR is going to go for a decision market futarchy route at all. I think Toli used this conversation as a means of saying, look, this is the vision for SKR, and that, you know, while they probably don't go down that same route, the ultimate goal is for the Seeker economy to be completely operated by Seeker holders. That's I think what he was getting at there. I don't think we can assume that it's going to be overlapping with MetaDAO and futarchy and anything along those lines.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, now moving swiftly on from the Seeker ecosystem, we have news here from the GigaBrain security providers at Certora. They're launching a Solana validator. Now, apologies for constantly plugging this, but they were all amazing conversations and you should go listen to them. We also spoke with Muli while we were in Breakpoint in that very, very warm booth in Abu Dhabi. So go and listen to that, learn about the amazing work that they do in terms of securing Solana DeFi TVL. And of course, we also spoke with Nikki from Layer 33, all about indie validators, you know, some of the amazing work that he's doing over there to lower the entry barrier to be a validator and a node operator. So you can go check those out. Now, Finn, I know you care a lot about Solana's validator landscape, and I feel like you can't get enough of it, actually. So talk me through this article while I bring it up.
Yeah, so this one's actually quite straightforward, really. Certora, who's one of the most reputable security firms in crypto, they secure billions and billions of TVL across multiple chains. They're realigning their commitment to Solana. They're really doubling down on everything that's happening here. They're going to be running their own validator. They're collaborating with the foundation for the Solana Foundation Delegation Matching Program, which is in the process of winding down, but I think there's still plenty of time for, you know, Foundation and Certora to get this validator up and running and earning sufficient revenue to kind of keep things ticking over. I think it's not so much about resolving the validator crisis. I think Solana's validator landscape is in reasonably good health. Obviously, things can be improved, but the benefit here is that, you know, Certora are obviously a class act. They're very reputable. They're people we can trust to do a good job. So the more better validators we have, the greater network security we have. Yeah, I like this move. Good job, Certora. Good job, Foundation, for supporting them. We do need more independent validators, so it's great to see more high level players kind of entering this field instead of
don't hate me here. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna plug another one. We also spoke to Dan Albert about validators and Solana's declining validator landscape. I think there was a recent piece that went out. Does Solana have a validator problem? Is an interesting question. So if you're curious to hear what Dan Albert himself thinks about validators and the number of validators and how sort of geographically decentralized everything is and the argument of quality over quantity, go and listen to that as well. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on X. Thomas, the final story in this newsletter here is about the DDoS attack that seems to have gone unnoticed. I didn't notice it. Did you notice that Solana was under a massive attack this whole week?
Nope. All transactions going through just fine. Nothing went down. A flawless performance.
So it seems like it was pretty serious. Finn, you've written here it was the fourth largest DDoS attack in history. Why did no one notice it?
Well, no one noticed it because Solana's reached a point where we're performant enough that we can kind of shrug off these attacks. Fourth largest in history is a staggering stat. I think while it's great to say, you know, it's a great headline. I think Trent.sol mentioned that it's perhaps disingenuous to put it at that scale because, you know, that 6 terabyte per second fact came through in just one 30-second burst. So it's not as if you know, these attackers were going full bore at everyone during that whole sequence. But right. I think it still represents how far we've come. You know, Solana for a very long time was considered the VC chain with an off switch that went down all the time. The last network outage we had was February 2024, I believe. That was over 670 days ago. So for a chain that used to be, you know, the joke of the crypto world for going down all the time, the fact that we, you know, staved off this massive DDoS attack is great news. Other chains got hit by the same DDoS attack and didn't perform so well. I think Sui suffered some degraded performance. You know, that tells us everything we need to know. That's Solana.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about other chains. I mean, I think it's fair to say that we do a vast majority of our on-chain activity on Solana. But if anyone in the audience does use other chains and you've experienced, you know, network outages or degraded performance, let us know. We'd like to know what's going on in other ecosystems as well. But I think the crux of it here for me is that Solana's shown immense resilience around a bunch of different events. So you saw the Trump meme coin launch really tested the network resilience. The AWS crash quite recently, I think we've forgotten about that, but that was very, very serious as well, right? So surely, in my mind, this is the final sort of nail in the coffin, if you will, for anyone that's complaining about Solana's resilience. To your point, Finn, 672 days without any liveness issues. That's huge. So yeah, I didn't even know about it until people started yapping about it on CT.
And I think we're only going to get better as well. You know, like we've dedicated so much attention to performance and resilience and security and everything of that nature. So, you know, today it was the fourth largest DDoS attack. Maybe in the future we get the second largest DDoS attack, and hopefully we're up to our, you know, everyone's able to roll up their sleeves and make sure that the chain stays live and continues to perform.
Absolutely. Okay, we are starting to run out of time, but Finn, this is my second favorite part of your newsletter. Before we get to the tweet of the week and the stat of the week, we're going to run through some honorable mentions. Obviously, we would love to have a much longer newsletter, but we have to limit it to 6 for obvious reasons. Now, Finn, I like it when you go sort of full machine gun mode with these honorable mentions. You want to power through them?
All right, I'm picking up what you're putting down. So, Near Trading goes live on Solana. RaptorX launches a prediction market aggregator. Fuse Energy, an energy-based Solana DeFi project, raises $70 million at a $5 billion valuation. Ford Industries tokenizes its stock in collaboration with Superstate. Remora Markets crosses $40 million in total tokenized stock trading volume. Realms teases a token. So Realms is it's a DAO governance platform. They're teasing a token coming in Q1 2026. StraightX announces the launch of USD and Singaporean dollar stablecoins in 2026. Invesco Galaxy launches their Solana ETF, so that's kind of rounding out all the prospective issues we have. And I've just got another one that I forgot to add on here. Magic Eden is turning towards USDC distributed revenue sharing with its staking. So That's cool. Normally, when you get rev share from staking a token, you get the token itself. Magic Eden is doing it in USDC, so very cool.
Exciting.
Amongst all this, Thomas, what stands out to you the most?
I'm going to go after my bags here. The Fuse Energy. Shout out to me because I'm an angel investor in them. They're
No
crushing
way.
it. Let's
Round of
go,
applause.
Fuse.
Round of applause. Huge raise, $5 billion valuation.
5 billion. Yeah, so that's going up. I like the sound of that. There was kind of I feel like you've been hearing about like energy and blockchains and the combination of it for a long time, and nothing has ever worked. So I feel like there's a big market there, and I think that's like a lot of what we're going to see. So to see this is the right direction. I like to see more of this. Yeah, I think it's cool all around.
Yeah, the thing that stands out to me most from this list is DEX launching a prediction market aggregator. I think the first half of 2026 is we're going to see so many prediction market adjacent apps, whether that's aggregators, whether that's analytics tools. I think everyone at Breakpoint was talking about prediction markets. It's very difficult to corner a niche in this when you've got teams like Polymarket and Kalshi who are just so dominant. You can try and go for a hyper specialized prediction market about sports or fashion or music or whatever, but ultimately it's very hard to defend against someone like Polymarket or Kalshi just adding a new category to their massive market. So I think we see a lot of prediction market adjacent apps spawn in the first half of the year.
Shout out to Kalshi as well. You mentioned there. So Fuse $5 billion valuation. Kalshi recently raised at an $11 billion valuation. It's super interesting to me though that all three of us have different sort of, I don't want to call it favorite, but most interesting standout items from this list of honorable mentions. For me, it's Remora Markets crossing $40 million in total trading volume because we did a video on these guys. We interviewed George not too long ago, and the numbers seems to be growing exponentially. I believe the last time we spoke about them, we were talking about $18 to $20 million in cumulative trading volume. That's doubled now in the space of 2 very short weeks. I always like the smaller teams out here, doing great things and growing rapidly. So 5 billion is great, 11 billion is great, but we love to see tokenized equities growing on chain as well. So that's super exciting to me. Okay, stat of the week and tweet of the week. My favorite part of Finn's spicy newsletter. So let's get to this last section. Let me scroll down here. Finn, what are we looking at with the stat of the week? It's some Masari data that you've got here. Solana looks like it's leading.
Yes, so Masari just released their 2026 theses. I think a big part of this, as I mentioned before, was focused on prediction markets. The stat of the week here shows that Solana, Base, and Polygon lead in the total number of prediction market platforms. I think Polygon is there just grace of the Polymarket connection. There's a lot of kind of second order effects that have made them succeed there. Base, obviously there as well, because that's probably the most active EVM chain, but Solana way out ahead. And again, I think this is just going to be the biggest narrative in 2026. Everyone's talking about prediction markets. Solana is the place to be building apps, so it just makes sense that if you want to build apps in new emerging sectors, you're going to do it on the fastest growing chain. That's I think the best way to summarize it, really. Solana is going to be the home of prediction markets on chain, and we've already got a head start.
We have. Thomas, are we bullish prediction markets?
Yes. So, I mean, we asked everybody what they're most bullish on for 2026, and probably over half of them mentioned prediction markets, right? So I've been exploring these. If you guys want to show me your favorite one, please let me know where to go, because I'm going to get into the trenches. I think that's where it's at.
Time for some niche prediction markets. I would love to have a bunch of prediction market sort of tickers down at the bottom of this live stream, actually. So if we do end up talking about something that's happening in politics or sports or major sort of global events, I'd love to be able to see that during the live stream. That'd be a pretty cool feature, I think. What do we think?
Yeah, here for it. Okay. Let's call them culture markets instead, though.
Oh yeah, culture market. Okay, we can rebrand everything. Gambling. We can rebrand from gambling to prediction markets to culture markets. We'll do anything for you, Finn. Now, final image that you've attached here: state of Solana in a tweet. We've got Raj himself. What's he saying?
Raj, Breakpoint is at its best when market vibes suck. This year has been the best ever. So I think this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Nobody cares about price. Sol could be $100. It could be $50. It could be $200. No one's really that hyper focused on it. Everyone is just discussing the apps being built and the trajectory ahead of us. So, Raj said it best. Breakpoint is best when market vibes suck. This has been the best year ever.
Absolutely. Now, down here, you're going to find a video, a link to an interview that we did with Raoul Powell, of course, the man behind the idea of the banana zone. He talked about the $10 trillion debt rollover that's coming sometime in 2026. So that's obviously hugely bullish news. You can go and check that conversation out. Listen to the man himself talking about the banana zone. Very quickly, I want to go back to something that we discussed here. This image. So I was watching a podcast, I think a couple of days ago, and one of the guests was basically saying, look, Solana's proven their worth in 2024 and 2025 to a large extent, but then they haven't necessarily solved, at least to the same extent that Hyperliquid has, the perps scene. So in his mind, as an outsider, as a non-Solana manlet, I should say, he was saying that this is potentially the biggest risk that Solana's facing is this competition from Hyperliquid. I kind of disagreed to a certain extent because I feel like there's so many things happening on Solana, and I wasn't aware of the fact that there are 24 different prediction market platforms on Solana. So to your point, Thomas, you mentioned a second ago that a lot of the people that we spoke to when we asked them, what are you most bullish on in 2026? They talked about prediction markets. People talked about prediction market adjacent projects and platforms being launched. This, difficult to say from one stat alone, but this to me says that the risk of Hyperliquid sort of dethroning Solana in some sense is mitigated, given how bullish people are on prediction markets in 2026.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that what we've seen with Solana is anytime there's a narrative in crypto, Solana is the center of it. Hyperliquid has been like the one that it wasn't the center of. But I think that that's something, I mean, we talked to bulk trade, everybody, all the perps dexes are working on that. They're not there yet, right? Like Hyperliquid really got a lot of traction, right? But as far as like trading spot, Solana has crushed that side of it, right? I think that there's a lot more actual volume on Solana versus Hyperliquid when you look at spot trading. So I think that when you talk about narratives and you talk about success, I mean, you just can't leave Solana out of it, right? I mean, it's the place to trade. It's where the users are, it's where the developers are, and it's where everybody's coming together. So when I see something like this, I didn't know that there was this many prediction markets on Solana, right? But it doesn't surprise me that that's where those are going to be, because that's like where it is. Like the whole internet capital markets. It's more than just a meme, right? Like it's actually happening on Solana, so it's good to see.
I think we shouldn't be complacent though, right? Like it's great that Solana's leading in so many areas, but perps is one where we're still so far behind. So it's great to pat ourselves on the back and say Solana's great. Obviously, more work to be done in several sectors. We shouldn't lose sight of that. We shouldn't get complacent. We should keep pushing to be the best in as many verticals as we can.
Well, Finn, if you keep wearing your Internet Capital Markets t-shirt, maybe by the next time Breakpoint rolls around in 2026, mid-November in London, maybe Solana will be leading outright in the perps front as well. Fingers crossed. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here because, as we mentioned earlier, this is the final stream of 2025. I think it's been an amazing year. We'll be putting out some reports, what we thought was amazing in 2025, what we thought we can improve on in 2026. So keep your eyes peeled. Go to YouTube/SolanaFloor to subscribe for deep dives from across the ecosystem. Subscribe to Finn's spicy newsletter. I love reading it personally when it drops. I go straight to Substack, have a little flick through it. Also go to YouTube and keep an eye out for Thomas Bahama's DeFi explorations. He tries to answer some of the difficult questions that I personally wouldn't even know where to begin to answer, such as is DeFi dead following the 10/10 deleveraging event? Some super interesting things coming your way from SolanaFloor in 2026. Unfortunately, ladies, gents, that is all the time we have today. Wishing everyone an amazing Christmas, a lovely new year with your friends, your family, your loved ones. And to everyone at home, go touch some grass. Stop trading, build a snowman, do whatever you want to do in the holiday period, and we'll see you right back here in 2026. Finn, Thomas, GN.
GN, lads.
GM.